ABC Evening News. I'm your correspondent and anchor, Krista Reichel, and we're happy to have you with us this evening. We turn our attention tonight to the press conference held earlier today by the President. In the speech, the President outlined in more detail what to expect from the issues raised by the State of the Union address. The two issues explained in more detail directly from the State of the Union were the 5-year annual domestic spending freeze, said to be able to reduce the United States deficit by $400 billion over the next 10 years, and also the $78 billion cut in defense spending, which will also be contributing to pulling us out of our national deficit. The third issue that was talked about by the President and the White House staff was the ending of corporate tax loopholes, which is said to be able to provide $59 billion in revenue over the next 10 years. And they also discussed their proposal to end tax breaks for the wealthiest 2%. When speaking about the domestic spending freeze, the President compared the results of the yet-to-be-implemented freeze to the low levels of the Eisenhower administration. We are in a $12.8 trillion debt, and with this proposal, we will be finally reducing our deficit. The proposed programs to be cut are air traffic control, farm subsidies, nutrition, national parks, and federal employee salaries for 2 years. According to the President, these programs are the best fit to afford the hit. Whether these groups are willing to take the hit or prepared is up for debate. The programs that are proposed to have an increase in annual domestic spending are education, energy, environment, and health. It seems that the Obama administration is putting their full efforts behind the green movement and moving our country into being a strong, energy-efficient nation. When speaking on the $78 billion cut in defense spending, which Defense Secretary Robert Gates is overseeing, the President discussed the 6% troop reduction, about 47,000 men and women from the Army and Marine Corps, and also the reduction of the contract hiring, the number of generals and admirals, and the closing or consolidating of headquarters. While the President expects a $54 billion saving in defense spending, the question is raised whether it is a fair move towards the men and women that serve our country. With many jobs being lost in the manufacturing sector and in the higher ranks, where will our nation's heroes go? When questioned about this, the President first deferred, and Press Secretary Robert Gibbs stepped in an unorthodox fashion to discuss that they will be counting on the private sector and trying to appease the Republicans. In general, the defense cut will save the nation money and increase revenue, but at what cost? When speaking on the taxations that will be implemented, the President cited 2 places where we could increase our revenue, with ending corporate tax loopholes and the tax break for the wealthiest 2%. Citing companies like Exxon and General Electric as companies that exploited the last-in, first-out accounting provision that increased their tax deduction. Ending this avoidance by corporations is said to bring a $59 billion revenue over the next 10 years. Also, the President is confident that this will make our nation a more attractive place to do business in the future. Ending the tax break for the wealthiest 2% will also be producing revenue, and people with salaries less than $250,000 are still being supported for their tax breaks. The President and the White House staff seem to have an optimistic view of where our country is heading and the possible innovative ideas that could come out of these new policies. There may still be some room for improvement toward the effects that will burden our troops, but the general high spirit is kept throughout the speech on these new policies and the coming together of Democrats and Republicans to uphold them. And the parting words of the President sum up the optimism that was seen from the White House today.
In conclusion, these are my policies and plans for our future. I also recognize that these plans may not be perfect, but I stand by my words, and I feel now is the time for Democrats and Republicans, as I said before, to work together to free our country from decades of hardship.
I'm Krista Reichel, and thank you for tuning in to ABC News.